Hello, starting properly in 1 minute. Changing the setup means changing the setup. Un momento, por favor. Da, 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 da. Where is that chart? Okay, I'll go ahead. I'll turn myself into viewable. Hello. The angle's weird. The lighting's gonna be weird. We're gonna get it. We're gonna. Today is gonna be. This live is gonna be whatever it's gonna be. But maybe. What if I try it this way? Is that better? Nope. What if I try it this way? Is that better? Yeah. This is. We are vibing this out. Sure. Sure. We'll go with that. I'll be a little voice in the corner. Hello. It's gonna be. I try to normally keep the chat and the camera as close to each other as possible so that it doesn't look like I'm looking in a completely different direction. Yeah, it feels more intimate because I'm significantly closer to the camera. Partially, that's part of it. I also have my little Florida water spray that I'm just gonna try to not get on the books, but I'm just gonna cleanse the vibe. Cleanse the vibe. Okay. Yes. Yeah, so this is Cornelius Agrippa. Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa's Three Books of Occult Philosophy box set. The books are all here. I think I'm only going to use one of them, and I don't even know if I'm going to use it for long. But those were some of the books that I was looking through. So these are the actual three books. The Divine World, the Celestial World, and the other one's the Natural World. That's book one. So Agrippa's huge, big dealio in occult world. Agrippa's not like a classical astrologer in the way that you think of an astrologer, but he has a ton of astrology in his works. I mean, like maybe you guess you could consider him an astrologer, but like, he's not Vedius Valens or he's not like one of the big names of astrology. He's more than anything. His books are a big compilation of a lot of the other occult works that happened around and before his era, which just translated from the original Latin 1533 edition. So this is the translation by Eric Purdue. Very good translation. I listened to him talk about it. There's a whole episode in the astrology podcast with Eric Purdue where he's talking about like this work and this translation. So yeah, and Christian stuff. Yeah. So it is very like this. This is the era of if you make your occultism look slightly Christian, you'll get questioned a little less. So there is definitely like this is that realm of well, this is not the same period as, but like, the whole thing about how we have as much Celtic mythology and lore as we do because it just got like the monks just recorded it in a Christian way and that's why it survived, like that kind of thing. That's this era of occultism and astrology and all of that stuff. So medieval era astrology and like Renaissance era astrology, all of that stuff is all in that. But yeah, and I do have a cat on my lap, being an adorable distraction. I would show him to you, but he's like trying to settle down and be cute. Okay. So yes. I do have many book. I have many book here. I also have my setup is completely a mess. So this is gonna be because I got relatively little like studying done because I was also having astrology chats with one of my really close friends who I'm going to probably use as an example for this. So I was doing research. I just wasn't studying. And I know y'all said like don't get too fussed about it being too academic-y or whatever. I'm not a real academic, so I don't have to worry about that anyway. But I do love this shit, and I want to get it as generally close to right as I can. So I partially had my iPad out of habit. I was also thinking we could look at charts on it. Because I do have, like, I have my whole, this is like my whole normal desk setup with like computer and like with laptop, second monitor, all this stuff. So I can see a bunch of charts, but I was like, I also don't want to like force y'all to look at a million charts. Like, I'm gonna try to explain without going like full 100% super deep astro nerd, but we'll see how that goes. So, the funny thing about having these books out is that I couldn't find the reference I was looking for. I pulled out these books specifically to look in this book and try and find where Agrippa talks about eclipses, because he does talk about them. The general, like, the thing that everybody says when you just like look at like what does Agrippa say on eclipses? It's just like basically don't make any like. It's the same thing. If you guys watch Crystalline stuff, Crystalline will talk about some of this stuff as well. Generally, don't do magic on an eclipse because it'll fuck with your results. That can sort of just generally be extended to like eclipse season. That being said, I've done a number of magic and magic adjacent things that were like not, that were independent of the eclipse. Just like don't do a big money manifestation on the day of the eclipse and expect everything to go fine, because it's probably like we're very much in that sort of like folktale genie djinn realm of you might get what you wanted in a completely different way, or you might get something completely opposite of what you wanted anyway, regardless of how hard you try to phrase it and everything. Excuse me. So, yeah, I'm not a fan of this eclipse season. I don't think many of us are. I do, preface, disclaimer, I try not to be too astro doom and gloom. I try to always, like, look at the positive stuff. With eclipses, I only really know how to look at the negative stuff. So that's not to say that nothing good in your life will happen during eclipse season, but certainly the days of eclipses are probably going to be rough, as we have all experienced many times. I have an abundance of examples and some stories that are and aren't mine to tell and everything else. So just eclipse season is rough. If you didn't know, now you know. You're validated. This has been a particularly insane eclipse season. I want to just like tell a couple like stories of what's been happening on this eclipse as a way to sort of like, sort of set the vibe a little bit, but also also like just commiserate a little bit, like not complain, because most of these aren't even going to be my stories, but I'm so sorry, my nose is so itchy. Let me go get a Kleenex really quick and come right back. Here, well, I haven't even used my I have not used my distraction rock filter in a while. Filter scene, whatever. I don't even have a rock to show you. Just stare at Agrippa's beautiful face. I'll be right back. All right, we're back. Sorry about that. I realized I did have a rock. Here's your distraction rock. Now that you no longer need the distraction. Distraction Agrippa. Get a grip. That's good. Oh my god. Excuse me. Okay. There we go. Put it back. Yeah, I always like eclipses. For some reason, yeah. So eclipses are potent, right? Like you guys have seen me do. You guys have seen me do magic on eclipses. I've done it very much on purpose. I have that one sigil it's in the other room. But I have that one sigil that I made. I guess it was during, was it last eclipse season or two eclipse seasons ago? I don't quite remember. But I made a sigil on the eclipse but it was with a very clear intent of like, this is not the kind of sigil, like certainly not the kind of sigil that you like get a tattoo of, right? Like you guys have heard me talk. I'm tentative of getting any sigils tattooed, and I make sigils. So, but that particular sigil was intended to be sort of like a cutting, like a little bit of an intentional explosion, right? Of a like, these kinds of things that no longer serve me, just get them out as quickly and efficiently as possible. That kind of, it wasn't intended to be like a chaos sigil, but it was intended to be like, it's kind of it doesn't even quite matter how this happens, just get it done. That kind of magic you could do on an eclipse. I would still be tentative. I would not necessarily recommend it, but that was something that I was trying to do very much on purpose. Hi Vesta, hi everybody. So glad, it's so lovely to see you all, by the way. I didn't say just like, hi, how you doing? But yeah, so you guys have seen me do eclipse magic before, but just the general, I do have a chaos sigil. It's in the archive somewhere. But again, it's, you know me, I am as specific and directed with the energy as I can possibly be when I'm making those sigils, because I don't want to just make a chaos sigil. I think the chaos sigil that I made was like, I think it was I work things into, like, I work change into my favor, I think is the chaos sigil that I made. But yeah, so that kind of intensity, you're gonna find it in an eclipse season, whether you're looking for it or not. So when you say like you made moon water on a full moon that was an eclipse and didn't know any better, I probably did. I don't know. Like, it's still moon water. It's just got crazy extra energy to it. You know, it's like, if you know what you're doing and you do it on purpose, great. That's like the equivalent of a little spiritual bomb. But, you know, I mean, I'm being a little dramatic, right? But, like, also, so, like, you know, that moon water that you make under an eclipse, like moon or whatever, it's not unusable. It's just way different than, like, your average moon water. If you make, like, moon water during, like, the full moon in Cancer and everything, and, like, everything else in the sky is all, like, perfectly set up, like, the moon is at home in Cancer. The moon loves that shit. That's perfect for the moon. And, you know, that's going to be some very quintessentially lunar moon water. Because the moon is in its domicile, it's a full moon, it's whatever. But if there's like an eclipse, a lunar eclipse in Cancer, like, and then you make moon water out of that, it's not going to be the antithesis of the moon. It's still moon water, but it's got this crazy volatility. So some of these things that happen in like history, and some of the things that I was trying to fact check myself on a little bit, because these are just kind of the astro myths that go around on like the podcasts and stuff. Yeah, I've also made eclipse moon water on purpose since like knowing all this stuff. I just don't really use it for anything. I think I used it for like one thing and then got rid of the rest of it or something like that. I don't quite remember, to be honest. But yeah, like, it has its uses. It's just not recommended because it's so much less, like, eclipse energy is less directed, is the best way that I can think of it. Like, it is chaotic, but not even in the way that like a chaos magician would necessarily think of it. It's just chaotic in the way of whatever you're trying to do may or may not work out anything like what you thought. You know, using it for the freezer, that makes sense. That's pretty fair. That's pretty fair. Yeah, it's definitely a little extra spicy. It's a little extra spicy for somebody who needs a little extra freeze. But yeah, so it's just very much, I am also, please excuse while I coffee as well. It's not full caffeine coffee, it's half decaf, don't worry about it. My psychiatrist said it doesn't affect my medications, it's fine. Or, Yeah, that's a tangent. Sorry. Um, yeah. Oh, freezer water. You could just put your water. That's actually I. That gets into me and my elemental stuff. You could just put water in the freezer, freeze it, and then let it melt, and it's freezer water and it'll have a slightly different energetic, like signature to it than water that you didn't just put in the freezer. But yeah, it's that's a whole like freezer spells and all that stuff. That's a whole other thing. Um, but yeah, so just when we're talking Eclipse stuff, the thing that I was looking for in here that, if y'all will excuse me for a minute while I'm gonna look one more time, I found out these books don't have indexes, which I didn't realize. What if, okay, I'm gonna check the back of the third book really quickly and just see if there's a whole index. The whole index is in the back of only the third book. Okay, this is what I was looking. I was looking and looking, trying to find where this was. Okay, I'm glad I checked. There's all the mentions of Mary Magdalene. And Judas. Where's Eclipse, please? Daemon went too far. Because it's the 3 books of occult philosophy. They are all treated as like one big book. So one of the things I was trying to say about Agrippa earlier, he's very much the kind of like scholar of the time who would like consolidate a bunch of information, and like there may or may not kind of be footnotes, but like there are chunks of his work that are just copies out of other people's books because that's how you did it at that point in time, you know? Like you literally just take the chunk of the book because someone may or may not have access to that book, because we're talking scribes, right? So instead of having to go and find a whole other book somewhere that somebody must have that there's only so many copies of, you just copy that chunk of book into your book. So that's the kind of work that we're talking about with Agrippa. Why? Eclipse should be here. Eclipse should be here. If it's not even in, I swear, if it's not even in the index that's at the back of the third book that I didn't find until I went live, I'm gonna be bummed. Like, it's not a huge deal, but okay, what if it's probably under something else? It's probably under a bigger topic. Is there just... There's a bunch of astrology stuff, but that's not Eclipse. Trying to just see if it's like under a heading for astrology or something, and then I'll give up. Okay. It may just not be here. Okay, whatever. The thing that people say from Agrippa is just Agrippa says don't do magic on the eclipse because it'll fuck with your talisman. So this style of magic that people are doing at this point in time, especially when we're talking astrological magic, is very... I mean, this is still how you do astrological magic, really, which is why I kind of like... I don't like really do astrological magic because I don't get into like deep selective timing and elections. Astrological magic and talismanic, like astrological talismans and all of those things, those rely really heavily on exact timing, exact planetary placements, conditions of different, like the conditions that the different planets are in, and you are very much as possible selecting for specific. Yes, hello kitten, come on. You're very much selecting for very specific attributes that fall under these planetary values and signatures and all that kind of, that type of thing. Where like, if you want a Jupiter talisman, you are very much electing for like electing a very specific time, like down to the minute kind of a time, for when all of the conditions are perfect of the rising sign of the chart that you're making. Sets up the rest of the chart and like the houses and what houses all of the other planets are and everything, and down to the degree of the optimal outcome for the specific thing you are trying to do. So this is the kind of hyper specific, hyper intentional, like sometimes once in a lifetime kind of magic that Agrippa is talking about. That's why he says, for the love of fuck, do not do do not make your election for your talisman on an eclipse, because the eclipse will take over everything. That is now an eclipse talisman. If Jupiter is in Pisces, where Jupiter loves to be in Pisces, and if the rest of the chart is supporting Jupiter's position there, like if Jupiter has, I don't know, so if Jupiter's in Pisces, what would be good? Trine, this is one of those things that's not going to make sense unless I show you, so I'm just going to try and show you here for a sec. If Jupiter's in Pisces, that's Cancer. That's Pisces. You know what? Forget it. Y'all don't need to see a literal hyper-specific chart election right now. I have a Jupiter in Pisces talisman that I didn't make, but Jupiter loves being in Pisces. So if you're doing that, you can make this super hyper-specific election for everything to be in favor of Jupiter building upon the energy of Jupiter in Pisces to have this outcome that you're looking for. If you do that, and you very specifically, intentionally choose that everything else in the chart should be set up perfectly, except it's happening at the same time as an eclipse, that's no longer a Jupiter in Pisces talisman. That charm, that thing that you're making, that magical working that you're doing is just not about Jupiter anymore, basically. It's now about that eclipse, because that's going to pull so much focus and so much energy. Like, so the sort of these like astrological myths that I'm jumping all over the place, but it's fine. These sort of astrological stories and things that we talk about, they're not myths, but I just don't remember the dates, and I don't have the charts, and I don't know if anybody has the charts for some of these things. But like the thing of in like ancient Mesopotamia, the thing was like and like ancient Greece and all this stuff. On eclipses, kings die is the kind of like headliner, right? So the general magical association for eclipses was the king dies. And obviously, there are tons of eclipses. The king doesn't die under every eclipse, but that's where one of, the story, the way that I remember it goes, that's one of the reasons that you would have these kinds of like king for a day, like celebrations and things, because then for one day, the real king is not the king. So if anything goes fucky, the king doesn't die because he's not king that day. That's kind of one of the stories behind how that kind of celebration happens. So if the story is on eclipses, kings die, the kings are being the kings, which is so generic. Like I said, I wanted to find the actual like historical stuff as much as I could, just didn't have time. But the story goes, the eclipse because the eclipse is like a king killer. It's a like things happen to people in positions of power, like so. And there was, I'm gonna be so completely honest, there's been so much political news lately. I don't remember what all the dates are, and I just don't want to get into it right now. But there's crazy shit happening in U.S. politics right now, as there kind of always is, in the midst of eclipse season. So the last eclipse, the most recent eclipse, happened on September 7th. The upcoming eclipse is happening on the 21st, which is this Sunday. These are like the specific days that you're looking at if you're looking for like what's happening in the people who are in positions of power, right? Yeah. Thanks. But yeah, so all of that to say, this is basically what people mean when they say don't do magic on an eclipse, because the eclipse is now the thing. The eclipse is like the trump card that's going to just beat out every other energy happening at that time and that day. And so a lot of us have been experiencing that, right? That's very much the energy we're all kind of in. It doesn't matter whether or not we're in positions of power. This eclipse season is just particularly harsh. There are reasons for that. I don't remember all of them, to be 100% honest. Um, there was something about like I was listening to Crystalline talk about it, and they were saying it's like this particular eclipse season is a continuation of one from a little while ago, like one of the ones that happened a year or two ago. Can't remember exactly which one, but it's just like so. There, I believe the other sort of detailed, like getting into the nitpicky stuff of like why and how this stuff plays out was the actual effects of what happened on that eclipse theoretically take 2 to 2.5 years to actually fully play out. But the day of the eclipse and the weeks in between eclipses are just hard anyway. The energy is just intense. In some ways that you can generally predict if you're good enough with astrology, and in some ways that just like it doesn't even matter. It's just hard, and like it's you don't need to know exactly how hard it's going to be. It's just hard, and you can just validate that for people. you know, Eclipse in the Appalachians was not the best idea. Oh no. Oh, what happened there? Funny you say that. Actually, I did. This was a few eclipse cycles ago. It was in 2023. But there was an eclipse on my birthday, like my birthday, which my birthday's coming up, guys. Hi. My birthday is October 25th. In like October 25th, 2023, I believe it was, there was an eclipse. Was it even in Scorpio? Eclipse, October 23. Solar eclipse. And then what was the lunar? Lunar eclipse was on the 28th. So it was 3 days after my birthday that year. But I was also like, I was up in the mountains in the Appalachians for a friend's wedding, and this friend like got married on this eclipse, which is like, they didn't consult me for the date. That's none of my business. But it was just like, damn, y'all really having an eclipse wedding in the Appalachians. This is not like that's a crazy decision. That's not a crazy decision. That's just how it worked out. That's how scheduling is. They are not as deeply spiritually like witchy astrology as I am. Just didn't matter to them. Is totally fine. And this was not like a you can see the eclipse from their wedding. This was just their wedding, and that was the time that they could book it for, and it was October, and it was pretty, and it was lovely. But just saying, eclipse in the Appalachians was not the best idea. It's not that wherever you are makes it better or worse, but things like this has been, like, the tech has been crazy. Like, I have heard other people say it, and I agree that this particular eclipse season has been almost like a Mercury retrograde, even though Mercury's not retrograde right now. Yes, the 25th of October. Yeah, there's just like, yeah, there's just so much stuff. So let me pull up the actual chart here. Is this the right one? Okay, this was for, so y'all are gonna have to forgive me. I'm just gonna be looking over here for a minute. I guess I can turn the camera. It's either y'all see me or y'all see the chart. So this is the eclipse from the 7th, right? So this was total lunar eclipse September 7th, 2025. The eclipse was the moon in Pisces at 15 degrees. So if you're looking at how this particular eclipse from a few weeks ago, Vesta, do we share a birthday? That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, that's so fun. Yay. And 25th is 2 days after your horoscope. Wow, okay, shoot. Do we I forget. Because I'm early Scorpio. Christina, are you also Scorpio? Anyway, this is fun tangent, but this is tangent. Chart for the eclipse from a few days ago. a week or so ago. So the main thing that you're looking for is like, okay, this is a total lunar eclipse in Pisces. The way that you know that it's going to be an eclipse at all is if you have a lunation, either a full moon or a new moon, within a certain number of degrees of the nodes. I forget exactly what it is off the top of my head. But so you see the north node of the moon is right here at 18 degrees of Pisces, and the moon itself is at 15 degrees of Pisces, and the moon is opposed the sun, which means it's full moon, right? Full moon, or the sun is at 15 degrees of Virgo, the moon is at 15 degrees of Pisces, the earth is in the middle. They are directly opposing each other, almost down to the minute. Damn, I didn't even realize that. 15 degrees and 22 minutes out of 60 minutes, right? This is minutes, or at least measured that way, whatever. 15 degrees and 22 minutes of Virgo opposed 15 degrees and 24 minutes of Pisces. So super close. So that's total lunar eclipse on September 7th. You would be looking for mostly to figure out how this is probably going to impact you. What do you have near this point? That's like the most that's the punchiest thing that you're gonna get, is whatever's gonna be here. So I'm gonna pull up, I gotta go back to, yeah, let's not only show my mustache. Okay. I am going to pull up my chart again real quick. Y'all do have my birthday. I don't really care if you guys see my chart, but it's just going to be easier for me to look at it this way. Also, this is just going on the internet, so maybe I don't need to like show the internet my birth chart. Yeah, it's fine. So for so many people, it won't matter, but you can do a lot with somebody's birth chart. Anyway, so where... Oh no, where's my tab with my other charts? I was trying to be organized and keep them in different tabs, and I may have lost all of the tabs. No, for real, where? Bear with me one moment. We just vibe. Okay. I have temporarily lost my birth chart that I brought up specifically to show you guys this. Let me just pull it up on here. Me, natal charts. Okay. So looking at how... I've told you guys a little bit on the Discord, a little bit of how my eclipse, how this eclipse went for me. But we'll just kind of go over that again. Okay, yeah, Christina, you're a Libra. I was like, you're not a Scorpio, right? Because it's just on that, like, on that line. I do really... I want the camera to back up a little bit, but it is currently plugged in, so I can't move it back that much farther. The ADHD is really, really ADHDing. Christina, no. Yeah, I'll pull up the chart for the upcoming eclipse in a minute here. Okay. So I had a lot of weird stuff happen on this eclipse, but not a lot of it was like directly impacting me. It was all just kind of a bunch of stuff. For me, in my chart, Pisces is my 5th house, and I don't really have anything there. I wish I could zoom in on this a little bit better. So I just said I wasn't gonna like put my chart up, but here, whatever, that's my chart. Ignore my dirty iPad. So if you see 5th house down here, Pisces, I don't really have any planets or any placements there. It's still in my fifth house. You could still say that, like, thank you for saying my desk is clean. I did just redo it. That's a whole tangent. I can come back and yap about my desk later. I put a bunch of effort into it, so thank you. But so this eclipse season has been crazy, but nothing really, really insane happened to me on the eclipse. There's been a ton of stuff happening to my friends and family, which has been crazy. And so I mentioned it on the Discord. The weirdest thing that happened was a couple of days after the eclipse, I had like a really strong, like, prophetic dream, which I'm not good with dreams. I'm not great with dream work. I do work in my dreams, but I don't remember it. I don't use it in, like, it's not the kind of thing that I, like, plan to do. I guess I sometimes do this, but just, I'm not someone who makes deep use of my dreams as a spiritual person. I just know I do stuff in my dreams. I don't remember them. Stuff just happens. But so I had, a few days after the eclipse, this dream about, OMG, this family thing is happening. It was really crazy. Like, thematically, the dream was, it was a dream. Things happened in really insane ways, but the themes of the dream pretty much all happened in the next, like, 2 or 3 days following that. So something to keep in mind when we're looking at this eclipse. Okay, just y'all are going to stare at the side of my head for a minute. So Pisces is ruled by Neptune, right? Neptune is the planet of, like, sleep, dreams, intoxication, illusions, etc. That kind of stuff is all Neptune's domain. In modern astrology, in ancient astrology, Neptune's not included, but we're including Neptune. It's fine. In traditional astrology, Pisces is ruled by Jupiter, so that's really, like, what I practice more traditional astrology. That should be what I'm looking at, but that's, what can I say? I'm a filthy animal. I use both. Okay. So Neptune is in Aries at one degree of Aries, so it's not in Pisces when this is going down, but it is kind of close. It's not close enough to, like, consider it close by any astrological standards that I would use, any orbs or anything. Orbs are just the distance in degree from a transit. So it's not close enough to be involved, but it's happening in Pisces. So where is Jupiter? Jupiter is in Cancer. I said I wasn't going to get too deep into Astro Nerd. I'm getting deep into Astro Nerd. Simplify. Short version. The weirdest thing about the eclipse for me was a dream. Yeah, I really, it's been a while since I've talked about astrology itself in depth. I can come back to that a little bit later too. I'm really trying to keep myself on track. So what, like, people who in my life who did get really, really, like, intensely bonked on the head by this eclipse, right? I'm going to use one of my best friends as an example here. Without showing you the rest of her stuff, we're just going to look at specifically around 15 degrees of Pisces. She also is a Scorpio rising, so it's still the 5th house for her. But you'll notice, I'm just going to cover up the rest of her information, but, like, 5th house, Pisces, looking, you'll see, I realize this is going to be hard to, like, see a screen on a screen, but she has Mercury at 12 degrees of Pisces and Saturn at 17 degrees of Pisces. Y'all, my girl got real sick. I shouldn't laugh. She was abysmal sick. Like, she just had the worst time. She got sick on September 5th, and she's also directing a show right now. They were going into Tech Week. So she's extremely sick, gets extremely sick right before Tech Week starts, and she has to go into the theater on September 7th, on the eclipse, while sick and, like, feeling like death, to go in and be a director and be there for Tech Week because her show was about to open the following weekend. Like, her show just opened last weekend. And she's just, like, losing it. And she's okay. She's fine. She's not sick anymore. But so just she and I were talking about this, and I was like, I was sort of explaining briefly some of the eclipse stuff to her. And she had an awful eclipse. It had a lot to do with health stuff. Generally speaking, if I'm looking at health stuff, I'm actually the first place I'm going to look is at the 6th house, not the 5th house. But just without deep diving into my friend's chart for everybody right now, that's just how the eclipse, how she experienced the eclipse. It hit her really, really, really hard, and she has placements right there where I wouldn't put Mercury and Saturn as just the two things that I would assume to be, like, those aren't the two planets I would assume if you told me what happened to her and I tried to, like, reverse engineer it. But she had a way worse time with this eclipse. She has two personal planets, the personal planets being everything Saturn and closer, right? So Sun, Moon, Mercury, Mars, Venus, Saturn. And the one I missed. Did I miss one? I don't know. Everything Saturn and closer. A personal planet. She has two personal planets within 3 degrees of the point that the eclipse happened at, and had a really terrible experience with the eclipse. I've talked about, again, on the Discord, and Crystalline has talked about it themselves. Crystalline got hit by a car. I'm not going to, like, go into Crystalline's chart right now, but that's all, like, they have validation for how that eclipse went for them, and getting hit by a car. They have videos on this and going into everything. They had a really rough eclipse. So I know everybody's been having, I'm generalizing, but, like, I know I've spoken to a bunch of you guys on the Discord. You've all had similarly insane times the last couple weeks. We're all just going through this eclipse season. I don't remember why. I don't have the answers and the reasons of why this particular eclipse season is just so rough. My hope, and I'm going to try to attempt to be optimistic, but also realistic. The upcoming eclipse, so I can switch to that now, is not the end of the world, but it's also not, like, much better. It will hit all of your personal charts differently. Everything's in a different place. This is a partial solar eclipse. This is partial solar eclipse in Libra? Virgo. Me suddenly cannot read astrology charts anymore. So yeah, the sun is at 29 degrees of Virgo for this. So Virgo's opposite Pisces. The sun is still in roughly the same spot, right? But now the moon has moved around in these weeks since. Yes. Crystalline's okay. They got hit by a car in a crosswalk with, like, the like flashing lights, and, like, people are in the crosswalk, like that kind of crosswalk, and they got hit by a car going 35 miles an hour. They're okay. It's all right. But yeah, if you want the full story, go watch their stuff. I'm not going to take their story from them, but it's just a really fascinating but horrible eclipse example of like just, yeah, they have all this stuff of what's happened in in their life and their astrology and everything this year. But that's just crazy. You don't, how, why, what, it's just hard to fathom the amount of crazy that has happened in this eclipse, and I expect eclipses to be crazy. I also don't really like those crosswalks, but it's fine. Yeah, they just had a dislocated shoulder. It's all right, but obviously not good. But yeah, so it's just, my friend who got sick was somebody else. But this is what I mean. Of, like, so many people have so many crazy things that happened this eclipse season. I don't say all of this to scare you guys. If anything, to be 100% honest, I'm doing this for somewhat of education and mostly entertainment, right? Like, we're all just we're just going through it together. So I'm just kind of like sharing that with you from my perspective with the amount of astrological knowledge that I have. But it's just crazy. So looking at the upcoming eclipse that's going to be on Sunday, I don't have the exact time. Like the time is on this chart, but I didn't put in a location, so I don't remember what time it's going to happen for like East Coast versus West Coast or whatever. So you may have to look that up yourself. But yeah, so as opposed to looking at that 15 degrees of Pisces point that we were looking at for the eclipse from the 7th, we're now looking at this really, 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 really late Virgo, literally 29 degrees of Virgo, for points to look at and be aware of in our charts for the upcoming eclipse. So, again, like in my charts, I know I have Venus in Virgo. I think it's kind of far away. Oh, no, it's not actually. Oh. I might have an interesting eclipse this time, guys. So my Venus is at 25 degrees of Virgo. Eclipse happening at 29 degrees of Virgo. That's pretty close. It's not on the money, but within 5 degrees is notable. So we'll see. I'll have to watch my Venusian themes. So that's everything from art and indulgence to relationships and romance, and like, all those kinds of things are the kinds of things that I'm like, something might happen in one of those types of areas for me on the solar eclipse. And it doesn't have to be bad, but it's not likely to be great, is kind of how I think about it. I try to not sugarcoat it, right? Thank you, Christina. But yeah, so it's just something to be aware of. So whatever you have in your own personal chart at like really, really late Virgo, that's the stuff that I would look at to think about. So like I said, my eclipse season has been mostly concerned around taking care of everybody else. My mom had a really crazy, like, my dream was about the stuff that happened to my mom the following 2 to 3 days after I had that dream. And I've been like having to support her and help her with that. Like, she's fine. It wasn't like a health thing, but it's just family stuff. My friend got really, really sick. That's resolved now. Her show is up. She's okay. She's going to have a very different experience for on Sunday than she did a week and a half ago. However long. Yeah. 8 days ago? 9 days ago? Whatever that is. 11? I don't remember. I can't do backwards math on dates right now. Yeah, it's just so... There's just a lot. So what I'm trying to do now, at this point in the live, in the video, I am trying to give you the level of tools that I have to look at it really, 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 really quickly, right? And give you a general idea of the kinds of things to expect. So the fact that the eclipse itself is in Virgo probably is going to have a lot more to do with Virgoan themes. But like, if you don't have, so like Mercury being at home in Virgo, Virgo being ruled by Mercury, those are the same thing. If you have a Mercury placement in really, really late Virgo, I would not have any important discussions on the 21st. Just put it so bluntly. Like, I'm not saying hide in a hole. I'm not saying put your phone in a ditch. I'm just saying maybe don't talk to your accountant if you can help it. Maybe don't open a business. Don't like... anything that's going to be this kind of like administrative, mercurial, Virgoan stuff. These like admin details, money stuff, deep discussions. If your Mercury's in late Virgo, just don't fuck with it. Not on eclipse. Just don't fuck with it. Just do something else. Do something enriching. Do something artistic. Do anything that's not that. Like that's the way that I'm looking at it, right? So if you have if now recognizing that I'm probably gonna have something's probably gonna happen Venus related for me, which is very funny. I am almost honestly, who knows? Maybe I will have a stroke of creative genius. Maybe that was a poor choice of words. I put the emphasis on the wrong word. I will not have a stroke. I will have a burst of creative genius, possibly. Who knows? That may be the kind of energy that I experience with Venus at 25 degrees of Virgo on a Virgo solar eclipse. It's also a partial eclipse. I don't actually know if it being a partial versus full, total eclipse makes the energy stronger. I would assume so. Again, just pinch of salt. So my moon is in Virgo, and I'm going to wedding on the eclipse. That means it's going to be interesting. Yeah, probably. I would say, I don't. Again, I'm not trying to freak you out. This is to make you more aware of the areas that you might need to adjust for and be aware of. I'm not sure. Weddings are just stressful anyway. Whether you're, even if you're a guest, they're still stressful. Maybe that's just my experience. Maybe I shouldn't speak for everybody on that. But weddings are just a big deal anyway. I would assume it's gonna be interesting regardless of the eclipse. If it's your moon placement is, it does depend how close the degree how close that orb is, how close the relation to the eclipse is. So if your moon is at 5 degrees of Virgo, the eclipse is the sun is going to be at 29 degrees of Virgo. It's relevant, but it's probably not going to be that punchy. If your moon placement is at the end of Virgo, I would maybe just make sure you don't have too many drinks. That kind of and I don't say that as a obviously not telling you what to do, obviously not anything like that, but just because we're looking at the moon and how that's going to relate to sort of your understanding of the things that are going on around you and your emotional response to those things, I would personally want to stay a little bit more coherent and a little bit, I'm sure, I'm not literally telling you how much to drink, but as the metaphor, I wouldn't want to be any more than buzzed on a day when I know that I'm probably just going to have a weird emotional time anyway. So that's my personal feelings on that. You handle it however you wish. Yeah, it's definitely just a thing to take note of, right? But that is a good example of that's a real life scenario, and there's some kinds of adjustments you can make for yourself, hopefully, to try and accommodate a little bit. Again, that's the kind of approach we're trying to take. We're not trying to be afraid, we're just trying to be mindful. I say as I laugh nervously. Let's see, is there anything else that I'm really... one thing that's maybe notable, but not imperative to consider with these eclipses. So, again, when we're talking about the outer planets, right? Again, sort of Saturn kind of counts in that. It is an inner planet, but you're getting into the outer planets. So Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, Pluto. Those are those big crazy vibe. I almost said vibe killers. They're not vibe killers, but they are vibe indicators. And so something that's happening now in the astrology. Stellium in Virgo. It will be interesting. If anybody's really, really worried, you can DM me. I can't promise that I'll get back to you very, very quickly. But if you're worried, I'll try to give you a little type of mitigation to the best of my ability in a sort of quick fashion. But so what's happening with the outer planets right now? They're all in really funky spots. And when I say all, I mean all. So Saturn and Neptune are almost conjunct. They're within 2 degrees of each other. On the 21st, Neptune will be at 0 degrees, 48 minutes of Aries, so almost 1 degree of Aries. Saturn will be at 28 degrees, 27 minutes of Pisces, so they are within roughly 2 degrees of each other. Uranus is at 1 degree of Gemini, and Pluto is at 1 degree of Aquarius. All of these planets move really, 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 really slow. The reason Saturn returns take 30-ish years is because Saturn takes 30-ish years to go around this circle of all the 12 signs. And everything past Saturn moves even slower than that. They all move slow. Uranus was in Taurus from 2019 to 2025. That's how long it took to go 30 degrees, right? So, perspective. They're all in the positions that they're in right now for a while-ish. Like, so what's happening... I'm going to risk moving this again. What's happening is... You see this crazy-looking triangle here? So this is Pluto, sextile... oh god, what's the degree? It doesn't matter. Pluto's aspecting both Saturn and Neptune in a sextile. Both Saturn and Neptune are also sextile Uranus. Again, you guys don't need to worry about what a sextile is right now, just notice the pattern, right? So, and then 2 sextiles, very literally, 2 sextiles equals a trine. I know, I get it. So if you had a perfect trine, you would have basically an equilateral triangle in the middle here. Trines are 120 degrees, sextiles are 60 degrees. That's in terms of, like, again, literally, it's a circle. So, like, if 180 degrees is directly across, 120 degrees is this aspect. So this is 180 degrees, this is 120 degrees, this is 60 degrees. They're all in direct relation to each other. This is not new. But the fact that everybody's at, like, the very beginning of a sign right now, or the very end of a sign in Saturn's case, and Saturn is currently retrograding, it does look like a kite. That's a thing. I can come back to that maybe. We're not on, like, a strict time schedule or anything. I just don't know if I have time to get into aspect patterns right now. I also just am not that good with aspect patterns. But, so what's happening? In both eclipses, because this is a long-term thing, like you'll see it in this one back here as well, the exact same aspect pattern is roughly happening. That's just a really big tone setter for, like, overall vibe. So without going into, like, giving you guys a really, really deep explanation of what every single one of those placements and aspects means, just know that's one of the reasons that the overall vibe is crazy. You guys probably will have heard a lot in the last 3 to 6 months, I don't remember how long exactly, about, Uranus's ingress into Gemini. Pluto's ingress into Aquarius happened at whatever point that happened. I don't remember when that was. Neptune's ingress into Aries. All that, like, the ingress, that means they're entering into a new sign. They've all made these new relationships to each other. Well, they've all entered new signs, which means they're in... all of those planets themselves that have entered new signs or retrograded back into the old signs or whatever are offering their energy in a very different way now that they're in a new sign. So the fact that a bunch of them are at the very beginning or at the very end just means there's been a lot of big tone shifts, right? So, like, by the time the next eclipses happen, they will be in a similar formation to this, but it won't be, like, this perfect. And it's not 100% perfect, it's just really close, and it's, again, notable. So, yeah, these big picture vibes of how crazy everything is right now, I attribute to the level of change, or correlate to, however you want to phrase that, the level of change that we are seeing in the big astro clock in the computer. Of those outer planets and how much of a tone shift all of that has been. So if we're really, really looking at the outer planets, we're just talking about Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto. But Saturn's just right there also and is similar. So there is a whole thing about aspect patterns. So I guess technically, actually, this is, right? For the 21st. Aspect patterns, kite. Yeah. So the exact pattern that you're seeing, that you're pointing out, is called a kite aspect pattern. It's sextile, trine, and then you've got your, yeah, trine, opposition. Yeah, this thing. That thing. The fucking Deathly Hallows thing. Yeah, consists of a grand trine. This gets into really deep, nerdy astrology stuff. That's what's like, I'm not going to go deep into this, but I just want to acknowledge the thing that you saw is a real thing. That's the thing that astrologers like talk about and look at. What program am I using? This is just astroseek.com. This is free. The program that I use on my iPad is called Time Nomad. I forgot I could do that to make it bigger. I should have been doing that. Anyway, it's fine. This is called Time Nomad. It is free, but they have like paid editions that I've gotten a couple of them that they're like $2 per extra little edition, and it's lifetime. You know, you pay for it once, kind of thing. Is AstroSeek is completely free. That's what I use to just like look at charts when I'm on a computer, basically, and not on my iPad. But yeah, there's just a ton of shit, like a ton of eclipse shit. I also got this book because I know Sailing the Wide Dark Sea, Why the Greeks Matter. I know they mention eclipses in here. I didn't get the chance to look at what they say, so I'm gonna skim this. I know it's on this page because that's what the index told me. See if I can, if this is anything. Because the reason I'm doing this is actually because I got my books that I wanted to use for this out, and then instead of, like, while I was looking at those, I realized that this book had fallen on the floor. And I was like, oh. So let me look if this book mentions eclipses, and it did. So let me skim through and find what it says. Geometry, eclipse. We're talking about Thales, who I kind of recognize that name. Invented geometry, also credited with predicting the exact time and place for an eclipse of the sun in the year 585 BC. Okay. That's not super helpful. I don't know why that was supposed to be important. There is a lot to be said about math and magic and astrology. Agrippa says it. That's what they're talking about there. They're talking about like literally using geometry and finding when the eclipse is going to be. So like that's really cool. Of like in 585 BC, that mathematician I guess was able to calculate the timing of that eclipse. That's huge. Being able to calculate and know when an eclipse is going to be is huge. When your belief is eclipses are crazy, because the fucking sun goes out. And now you can calculate it. That is huge. That's a thing that we can just do like this. which is very kind of mind-blowing when you think about it, but that's maybe a tangent for another day. But again, I'm just like, I'm pointing out all of this just to be like, eclipses are a big deal and they're a good thing to be aware of, and I don't want anybody to freak out because it's really, really, really easy to freak out. But I also don't want to like tell you guys everything's fine all the time, because astrology don't work that way. We've had the discussion, a couple of us privately, I guess, before, about like the way that I read tarot cards can be brutal, but like I'm never trying to make you cry. I'm trying to give you information, right? I have opinions about readers who just make people cry because they can. I'm trying to deliver information in a way that you can actually use it and like be aware of what's going on. All of this stuff is just information to it's a friendly chat to validate the eclipses are crazy. It has been crazy. This has been a particularly a spicy eclipse season. It kind of sucks. But whether you're using a tarot deck that like this deck is, I like started kind of calling it my therapy deck, because it's like, or my like therapist quote unquote deck, because that's the way that this deck likes to communicate. This is I was gonna unwrap it and show you guys. This is my normal deck. This is the one you guys are used to seeing from me. My newer deck with that crazy cool art style that I showed you guys a few months ago, that one's a little bit more spicy, a little bit more pokey, but it's also a little bit more, and it's a little more blunt, but kind of in a good way. Like, and I've talked about it a million times. Reading with playing cards, you can't sugarcoat shit. It means exactly what it means. And I'm never sugarcoating, but I'm always framing in the most constructive way possible. Astrology is more like playing cards than it is like tarot cards. You can't sugarcoat shit with astrology. The planets say what they say, and you could read it a different way. That's what different house systems are. That's what modern versus traditional astrology is. That's what Jyotish, or like Vedic astrology versus tropical astrology is. These are all different ways to read the same planets and like the same signs and all this stuff, more or less. Like this, there are ways to read astrology charts differently, but the astrology is no matter what you do. And in my life and my experience, I have seen so many times that it's so on point, if not almost too on point to be scary. Thematically, exactly what the astrology says is what ends up happening. It's fucking wild. It still baffles me to this day. The friend that I was talking to before I started this live about some of this stuff confirmed another thing about, like, we have similar charts in that we both have Scorpio rising. This is the same friend that I was talking about earlier. We both have Scorpio rising. Uranus entered Taurus in 2019, and we both had the same experience within like a month of each other, like the same almost exact experience. Uranus left Taurus on July 7th, 2025. And not the antithesis of that experience, but a resolution to that experience happened for them on July 7th this year, like on the day that Uranus left Taurus. So like, it's just, astrology is crazy, but if you know what to look for, and you can, it's like, try. I know it's hard. I am never going to tell any of you that you have to learn astrology, because it's fucking difficult. It takes a lot of focus. I'm only as good at it as I am because of multiple various periods of hyperfocus. And I'm still not a professional astrologer. I probably should have said that at the fucking beginning of this. I am still like a hobbyist astrologer at best. I like reading for people. I like looking at charts, but like this shit is complicated. Things like I still don't fully understand topics like the condition of planets, and that's kind of those are some of the things that are like really important if you're gonna actually read a chart for somebody like professionally, or if you're gonna actually make an astrological election, you need to understand like the condition of planets and the timing and the blah 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 blah, blah etc. Because you can't sugarcoat shit, I'm doing my best when I'm looking at these charts and reading all this stuff and trying to talk to you guys about it to do what I do in tarot and frame it in the most constructive way possible for you. Or for you to be able to use something that, like, with the minimum of information, which I realize is a bit amusing when we're an hour and 10 minutes into this, to be the minimum of information that you need. But, you know, the actual, like, applicable to your chart part of this, I could have told you in 2 minutes. It's just nice to have a little bit more background and a little bit more support to know what to look for and know where to accommodate yourself and know what's in, you know, part of one of the things that, you know, you say about the natal chart is that the natal chart is actually the soul's promise, right? It's like one of the ways to phrase it. Things that, you know, yeah, I know we're wrapping up. I'm wrapping up. It's good night, Christina. Thank you for coming. There's a lot of moving parts. I don't want anybody to be freaked out, but I also want you to have a little bit of a way of preparing yourself for everything. Yeah, it's fine. I've run out of energy. Do you guys have questions before I wrap up, like, fully for the night? Because whatever you got, hit me, and I will do my best. I also didn't bring the Bibliomancy book over here, but maybe we're gonna... I guess we're gonna use the Greek history book for Bibliomancy. Or maybe we'll use Agrippa. That would be crazy. Agrippa is really gonna be dense to use for Bibliomancy. But whatever. We've got multiple books here. We could just... you can use any of them. And it would be... This has been a very different live. So yeah, if you have questions, drop them in the chat. I'm going to take another sip of my half-calf coffee. That's valid. I don't understand enough to ask questions is so real and so fair. At the very least, I hope that I have helped and given you a little something to, like, think about and look at so that you're not so blindsided next time compared to, yeah. I didn't expect this eclipse season to be as intense as it is. And so I just want everybody to have a little bit, like, one more tool in their toolkit before we get to the next eclipse this coming Sunday. You know, that's all I'm going for. That's just my vibe. So yeah. All right, Bibliomancy. This is gonna be a better Bibliomancy book, and I'm still not 100% sure why it was grabbed for me. So we can honestly, let's do both. Because I'm kind of curious to see what comes out of Agrippa. So let's do this first for, like, a more normal Bibliomancy, and then we'll do Agrippa to, like, round it out and just see how crazy that gets. I do have faith in your ability to understand the stars, Lid. I believe in you. You got it. It's fine. It is hard, but I believe in you. Okay. Y'all know the drill. Bibliomancy time. Give your general energetic affirmation that you would like to be included in this reading. This book has the deckled pages where everything is all... It's going to be hard to flip through. I can flip through the bottom. Message 1 of 2. Okay. Sorry. Los dos. Okay. This is funny. Okay. I'm trying to see if I need to read out more than just the part that my finger landed on. This is when I do the Dao De Ching, I just read the full passage. But when I'm using a bigger book, I do tend to do like the part that my finger lands on, like energetically and everything. I'll go ahead and read this paragraph, but then I'll tell you specifically where my finger actually landed. So, it starts a whole new section called Something Brand New. Beyond the social, political, and artistic innovations we have been considering, the most influential of all Greek intellectual innovations is undoubtedly the development over the course of 2 centuries of philosophy as a systematic study. So this is where my finger landed, right here. Philosophia is a Greek word meaning love of wisdom, and the first philosophers were relatively traditional sages who gradually and probably painfully created a new job description for themselves. These men, whose reputation as magi gave them at first an oracular aura, though they were actually engaged in a pursuit we might more readily call science. This is obviously like ancient Greece is where we're talking about traditional Western astrology. These like philosophers and astronomers and astrologers and all these things and like magi and all of these things are all up in there together. So to have this long rambling astrology live all about eclipses and everything, and have the first point of call being philosophia, right? Like, and I mean, it's literally, it's broken up that way in the root and the, the love of wisdom, the first philosophers being sages who gradually created a new job for themselves, who might have been engaged in a pursuit we would more readily call science. That, again, that intersection of magic and like technology and science and everything, I love it. Y'all know I love it. Okay, I'm enthused at that being our first point of note. The love of wisdom. Embrace the love of wisdom, folks. Okay. Cool. And then Agrippa. Do we do the Celestial World or the Divine World? Because the Divine World was on top, but the Celestial World was the book I was going to use today. But I feel like the vibe is to use the Divine World. This could get crazy. I have not gotten through this book. I have looked at very little of the 3rd book. So we're going to see what the hell comes out with the Eric Perdue translation of the 3rd book of Occult Philosophy by Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa. Okay. I had to. I don't know why. Okay. For the second portion of the reading. Yep. Oh, I love that, Rebecca. That's such a good way to put it. Yes. Okay. So what I laughed at, this is a portion of chapter 52 of the 3rd book, of lots and marks holding the certain power of oracles. So this is not about astrology specifically, but this is about like casting lots and everything. The disposition of those who wish to cast lots. Therefore, anyone who works with lots must approach them with a well-disposed mind, not disturbed, not distracted, and with strong feeling, a firm deliberation, and a constant intention of knowing what is requested. In addition, he must have strong purity, chastity, and sanctity towards God, blah, blah. But meaning having faith with sacred orations. So that they're made worthy of knowing the spirits and knowing, well, if you were those, it's the first part. This is just the first part. That's what I thought. Okay. So, just speaking of those who wish to divine, who wish to cast lots, who wish to blah, blah, blah. Anyone who works with thoughts must approach them with a well-disposed mind, not disturbed, not distracted, and with strong feelings, a firm deliberation, and a constant intention of knowing what is requested and having faith. There's our advice from Mr. Agrippa Man. So, creating new jobs for ourselves in a crazy time, having consistent, deliberate intention and faith in our attempts at divining. That's a nice combo of ideas to go out on. Thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. I know this has been a long one. I know it's been a dense one. I appreciate you guys for sticking around. It's a crazy time out there, folks. I hope that everybody's second eclipse of the eclipse season goes well. After this, we're out of the woods for a bit. Yeah, exactly. Be grounded, have clear intentions. And that's how Agrippa writes, right? Like I said, he's a little stuffy, but he means well, and he transmits information pretty well. So, we got this, folks. Good luck on Sunday, everybody. And the days surrounding. I hope that it doesn't hit you too hard, but if it does, it's okay. We'll all make it through. None of us are gonna fall apart this time. This eclipse. If I can see anything in the stars, it's that we'll all be fine, sort of. Thanks for sticking with me. I'm gonna go rest, and this cat is about to stick me in this chair for another 20 minutes because she's about to sit down and get all cuddly and cozy, so that's very cute. Thank you guys. Have a good night, everybody. And I will most likely see you next week. Have a good one, everybody. Bye-bye.